Hi friends. After The Ultimate Fighter concluded, I said I'm going to take a much needed break and then it's right back to making content. Well, while on that break, I ended up getting a cold, which I think turned out to be the flu. Needless to say, that made everything in my life pretty difficult, let alone yelling about mixed martial arts. I'm on the very tail end of it now. I think you can probably hear a little bit of it in my voice still, but I've already started to record some new content and that will be coming out very soon, I promise. In the meantime though, I didn't want you to think that the channel was completely dead, so I put together this supercut of every highlight video from every episode of TUF Season 31. It's a fun look back at the misery that I felt watching that show, and also an interesting look back at the evolution of the channel as we went from shooting on potato, to upgrading the camera and the lighting, to eventually learning how to actually use the upgraded camera, a process that I'm still going through, but I think I have a decent handle on at this point. Thank you very much for sticking around with the channel. I appreciate the support as always. New stuff is definitely coming very soon, and in the meantime, enjoy this supercut if you can. So the dead horse that is The Ultimate Fighter has been drug out for its 31st beating. This season's coaches are the shell of a formerly great fighter and a man who fights like a maniac in the hopes that someone out there just might like him. You've got washed up UFC fighters looking to make another run, and young hungry prospects looking to become wash-ups of their own, proving that this season truly is a smorgasbord of shit that I don't care about. Due to the dull, repetitive, and ultimately pointless nature of this program, I can't be bothered to do full episode breakdowns. Thus, for these videos, I'll be pulling any segments that I find even remotely entertaining and commenting on those. Frankly, everyone watching should be kissing my balls for this selfless act of public service, as I find reality television to be utterly atrocious. And if I were to ingest this visual refuse for entertainment, I'd be watching my 900-pound fiance or whatever else you normie dumbbells enjoy. So here we go, Season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler, where much like Alien versus Predator, no matter who wins, we all lose.
They demand to be the next Ultimate Fighter.
So Connor rolls up to the Apex to inform Michael Chandler that he's decided that their fight will be at 185.
If I told you what weight it's gonna be, 184.
You wanna do 185, I'll do 185.
Yes, sir, Mr. McGregor, sir. Would you like a shoe shine with that, Mr. McGregor, sir? I got my shine box right here if you'd like a shoe shine, Mr. McGregor, sir. They do the coin toss and Connor takes all prospects, Chandler takes all vets. Dana comes in to say,
it should be epic.
It won't be.
Walking out of the van and into this house is just crazy.
This guy's name is Mando. I haven't seen the show, but apparently he got in a lot of trouble for taking off his helmet.
Look what they got here for us.
Proper 12.
Proper 12.
Hey,
Proper 12.
they even got the Irish apple.
The Irish apple, the proper 12.
I am utterly shocked that they have Proper 12 on the Conor McGregor show. Too bad Michael Chandler can't bottle inspirational quotes, or maybe he'd get some product placement of his own.
I think that I finished all these guys in the first round.
Uh-huh. Now, prior to the show starting, it was rumored that Conor McGregor had kicked off a few contestants and brought in a couple of his own guys. See if you can guess who one of them might be.
I'm Conor's teammate, train at his gym in Ireland. My teammates may wonder where my allegiance lies.
So Roosevelt Roberts is picked first to fight. Fun fact, he was actually named after the coolest Muppet on Sesame Street. He'll be fighting Nasty Nate Jennerman in this episode. The rest of the top 4 picked fighters were also paired up. I'll deal with them in their episodes. One thing I will say now though, Mando has a fucking cool hat! Rico rolled into the matchups wearing sunglasses and a bathrobe, which is a bold fashion statement for anyone whose name isn't Jeffrey Lebowski. Nate has a 3-legged dog!
This is our little tripod gone. If you watch him run and play, you don't even know.
Now when I heard the name Roosevelt Roberts, I thought, where do I know that name from? Well, it turns out it was from him receiving one of the cleanest wheel kick knockouts of all time at the feet of Ignacio Bahamundes, and also from getting choked out by the Sancho Kevin Kroom. What I also didn't remember is Roosevelt is bout money. So bout money, he tattooed it on his goddamn chest.
I could click with Chandler, Florida boy, I'm a Florida boy. We'll find a way to make shit happen.
Go Panthers or go fuck yourself.
I'm here at weigh-ins. Yeah, I don't know where Connor is.
So it's finally time for the weigh-ins, and Connor isn't there. Why? Because he can't tweet at Alexander Volkanovski and stand at the weigh-ins at the same time. Everyone knows that he can only do that from his yacht wearing a Versace Speedo. Alright, with all the horse shit out of the way, it's finally time for the moment of truth. The fight itself, Roosevelt versus Nate. Now, if you've ever watched The Ultimate Fighter before, you know that you can usually predict the length of the fight by where it falls in the runtime of the episode. Turns out this season is no different, as the fight lasted just about as long as it took me to say these last 3 sentences. The 1-2 combo platter from Roosevelt gives Nate the itis, he sleeps it off on the mat, and that's it. It ain't what it ain't, and it is what it is. Obviously, Nate didn't take getting knocked out in 2 punches very well, and in typical reality show fashion, we essentially end the episode with this exchange between him and one of the producers of the show.
What message do you have for your friends and family back home?
I love you guys and I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ, I'm surprised they didn't get his wife, kids, and parents on FaceTime so they could really drench that wound in lemon juice. That producer is a grade A asshole. So that's it for TUF 31, episode 1. I'll probably do the rest of the episodes for this season, as I can't afford a dominatrix and I have to torture myself somehow. In lieu of kissing my balls, leave a like and a comment on this video. If you haven't already, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode if my head doesn't explode.
All right, hey guys.
Oh, hi, Mark. It's episode 2 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler, and already I feel like an idiot for committing to watch this entire series. Much like Connor's roid face, it's bloated to the gills leading up to the single fight that we get per episode, making it feel like watching the Contender series if the walkout commentary on that show was 45 minutes long. Oh, and the fight between McGregor and Chandler probably isn't going to happen, but you already knew that, didn't you? When asked about the status of the fight during the UFC Vegas 74 post-fight presser, Dana White had this to say.
The one thing that you guys have to understand is, this kid has so much money. It's like Habib now. It's like, these guys got shitloads of money. And it's hard to, it's hard to reel these guys back in and get them fired up to get in a fight.
It's almost like booking Connor to do this show was a bad idea. It's almost like good guy Michael Chandler is getting screwed by even taking part in this. It's almost like your cash cow would rather be partying in Ibiza than bearing milk for you, Dana.
It's pronounced Ibiza.
Oh, fuck off, Batman. Also between episodes, contestant Jason Knight took to Instagram with this to say.
I'm one of the coolest people that you're ever gonna meet.
I'm from Florida, sir. You are literally every person I have ever met. Alright, let's dive face first into the empty pool that is The Ultimate Fighter Season 31, Episode 2. The episode begins on Fight Day, where the fight that we're supposed to see is Timur Valiev versus Trevor Wells, where out of nowhere an old friend of Trevor's stops by to throw a monkey wrench in the operation.
I go see the doctor for my physical, and then, that morning I woke up with a cold sore, and the doctor saw that, and you're not able to fight with that if it's, active at the time.
Much like with the loose chick at the dive bar, all it takes is one cold sore to completely fuck up your entire evening. So, with Timur and Trevor's fight on ice for the time being, the fight for this episode becomes Mando Gutierrez versus Cody Gibson. It turns out that Mando was on the Contender series fighting a pre-derailed hype train in Raul Rosas Jr., and Cody Gibson actually fought Aljamain Sterling in the UFC, proving that both fighters have faced some pretty high-level competition. And lost to that high-level competition.
What are you thinking in the locker room? What you mean? What are you thinking? What's in your head? Walking out when you're getting ready.
I'm thinking, man, can you believe that there are actually still people out there who believe I'm the greatest fighter of all time? Then David Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World starts playing, and I do a rail off the back of a cheetah before heading out to the octagon to throw a punch or two before my leg snaps. Back at the TUF house, Landon is shooting off at the mouth, and Roosevelt Roberts does not take kindly to this.
Even if I fucking hate y'all sometimes, I appreciate all y'all, for real.
Landon do got a big fucking mouth. I ain't gonna lie, I wanted to slap his ass.
This trumped up cattiness goes on for some time.
I don't like you, bro, and I'd rather you stop talking to me.
You talking to me. I ain't talking to you.
You coming over here standing in front of me.
I'm trying to win.
I'm just saying.
I'm trying to win.
What it is, bro.
I'm trying to win. I'm coming to fight.
Hey,
I'm not gonna fight you in the house, bro.
Oh my God, shut up! Cody met his wife in college and was using social media to get pussy way before it was cool.
She was playing college basketball and I was a college wrestler. After a brief conversation with her and kind of just talking to her a little bit, I had to slide into her DMs on MySpace.
The youth of today may not know it, but in terms of form, function, and presentation, MySpace truly was the shit. All praise due to Tom, the patron saint of social media, for all of the ass that I got between 2004 and 2007.
I moved to Michigan to pursue my fighting career.
Beautiful Michigan weather. Or something like that.
Mando trains in a part of Michigan that is so many shades of gray, Dakota Johnson wants to have a BDSM relationship with it. In addition to fighting, Mando is a barber, which I hadn't thought about before, but is actually a pretty good career path for an MMA prospect. The hours are flexible, the pay is good, and if you have experience cutting hair, you'll have something to go back to when the UFC cuts you. Apparently, Joaquin Buckley trains at the same gym as Mando, but got literally no mention in the entire episode. So Joaquin Buckley, what's good, nigga? So back at the TUF house, Connor comes down to get trashed with the boys and get a haircut from Mando. This exchange happens.
I'm missing a lot of shit for mine. Like my wedding anniversary, my wife's birthday.
That's a fake. That's a fake.
Based. Connor barrels in like a tornado, does a couple shots, and then promptly misses the weigh-ins again. Big shocker there. His team member Lee has this to say about the upcoming fight between Mando and Cody.
Cody lifts his knees a lot to throw people off. Them knees are a dangerous weapon, especially if you go into a knee coming up, so Mondo's gonna have to be careful of the knees coming up the middle.
I'll be consulting with Lee on all of my picks for upcoming MMA bets, because Cody Gibson by flying knee would easily have been a plus 1200 prediction. In another spectacular first round performance, Cody would land the knee flush on Mando's cheek, sending him to the land of the lost and proving that even the dopest of hats cannot save you in the octagon. So all in all, Team McGregor leaves with another loss, Mando leaves with a newly rearranged face, and I leave this episode thinking, goddamn, I really miss MySpace. If you like these Ultimate Fighter highlight videos, make sure to comment and like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next episode unless I decide to jump off a cliff. Conor McGregor loves and respects Mexicans.
We're from Mexico. Yeah, we're all from Mexico.
Hey, man, I love and respect it.
See, that proves it. So, how was your Tuesday? Mine started with my favorite hockey team getting completely annihilated to lose the Stanley Cup and ended with me watching The Ultimate Fighter. Needless to say, it was one of the worst Tuesdays of my fucking lifetime. I stand by it. In other South Florida sporting news, Conor McGregor punched the Miami Heat's mascot so hard, he knocked the team out of title contention. A lot of jokes and memes began circulating after Bernie was taken to the hospital, but not enough credit is being given to the real MVPs of the incident, the Miami Heat fans, for booing Conor mercilessly as he tried to hawk his hemorrhoid cream or whatever dumb product he sold his likeness to this week. The Panthers lose, the Heat lose, Kimbo Slice is dead, Jorge Masvidal, Colby Covington, and Mar-a-Lago are all still here, and I have to watch episode 3 of season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. Truly, the torture never stops in the state of Florida. Now let's get into the episode. The episode begins in fight prep for Team McGregor's Aaron McKenzie, where Connor offers some sage wisdom. In song!
Oh, happy days, oh, happy days. Sing a song in your head, lads.
Now last week on the show, I told Batman to go fuck himself. Little did I know that he'd be fighting on this episode of the show, as this is Aaron McKenzie, MMA prospect and member of the Tattooed Chest Club. Now admittedly this is some cool ink, but I've seen tattoos like this before, and they always leave me with a number of questions. Question 1. If the implication is that your skin is tearing away to reveal the batsuit underneath, does that mean that you have a skin suit and a batsuit over your actual body? If so, how do you take a shit in that thing? Does your ass somehow go through both layers of the double insulation? Or is there a flap in the back like some gold prospector's long johns? When you actually want to fight crime, do you have to meticulously peel off the skin layer? Or does it break away in one swift motion like tearaway sweatpants? What's the skin layer even made of? Is it some kind of flexible polyurethane? Or is it living tissue like the Terminator?
I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton.
No, you're not, dude. You're some guy from Oklahoma whose chest tattoo is playing second fiddle to Bout Money Roosevelt's. Anyway, Aaron is fighting UFC veteran Austin Hubbard, who, in his day job, works in home restoration. Time will tell if he'll be able to restore his 3-4 record with the organization to something with a bit more curb appeal. Interestingly enough, Austin is the former LFA lightweight champion, and Aaron is the current champion. That and a stick of gum will actually get you admission to an LFA show.
He's gonna he thinks he can put a pace on you. You're in a good spot in every single position in this fight. Hit him with something hard.
There's nothing particularly funny about what Michael Chandler is saying here. I just think it's hilarious that he's posted up on the wall like the sophomore who hangs out with the freshmen just so someone will perceive him as cool. Back at the Apex, Conor McGregor is greeting a young fan who makes custom action figures and made a few of McGregor. Now online I've seen a bunch of people commenting about how wholesome this is, and all props due to this kid because the action figures are amazing. But trying to humanize Conor McGregor at this point is like saying Charles Manson may have started a murder cult, but he did make a couple of banger songs.
What's the damage? A G? You do a G? Take a G, will you? I say a G is plenty, is it?
With that kind of money, that kid could buy the LFA outright. We must have an actual fight on our hands this episode because it's already time for the weigh-ins. Take a wild guess if Conor actually showed up this time. If you guessed yes, please chemically castrate yourself. Finally, by episode 3, we get our first real battle of a fight with some solid two-way traffic. Aaron McKenzie came out gunning, but Austin Hubbard was cut from a different cloth, absorbing heavy shots and expertly defending the takedown before gaining top control of his own and pouring down some brutal elbows, adding blood to the mat. McKenzie fought like a beast and has nothing to be ashamed of, but the unanimous decision victory for Hubbard was absolutely warranted, dealing Team McGregor its third loss in a row. Now there is one shot of Aaron McKenzie getting loaded onto the back of an ambulance after the fight, but the extent of his injuries aren't known. Until you get to the testimonial interview, where you find out that Austin Hubbard has given my man a rainbow-colored eye patch. I don't know McKenzie's stance on the LGBTQ community, but becoming a polychromatic pirate is certainly one of the more unique ways to celebrate Pride Month. So his chest tattoo takes a backseat to Roosevelt's, his bucket hat takes a backseat to Mando's cowboy hat, and his fighting skill takes a backseat to Austin Hubbard's. Not a great day at the office for Mr. McKenzie. So, if you're keeping score at home, Team Chandler now has 3 wins, and Team McGregor has nothing but a taste of Conor's pancakes. That's not a euphemism. He actually served his team pancakes.
Guys, today is Pancake Tuesday, yeah?
Sugar? Okay.
Go ahead, lads. Happy Pancake Tuesday.
This makes sense because, as the saying goes, those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach become MMA lunch ladies. If you like these Ultimate Fighter highlight videos, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and fuck the Las Vegas Golden Knights forever, and ever, and ever, and fucking ever, and ever, and ever, and ever, and ever, and fucking ever. Habib fans be like, he lucky it didn't go to the ground, brother. Bernie would smash him. It's episode 4 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler, and this show has entered a realm of such monumental, unadulterated tedium that I suspect even the producers were begging God himself for something interesting to happen. Why, God? Why couldn't that footage of Connor going into the bathroom with that lady at the Heat game have happened with our cameras present?
I'm sorry, my son. The best I can do is an affable Dagestani and a 27-year-old gardener.
Yes, hello, Church of Satan? Yeah, what are the membership dues like? Also, with Connor officially missing the deadline to enter the USADA testing pool, it would appear that the fight between him and Michael Chandler is now almost certainly flatlined, rendering this show an odd, pointless distraction that serves no purpose whatsoever. Much like the patch of hair growing out of the back of Muin Gaffarov. Michael Chandler posted a video to vent his frustrations while he himself was being tested by USADA, but I don't care and you don't care, so let's get into episode 4 of The Ultimate Fighter, season 31. With the cold sores on Trevor Wells' face finally going back into hibernation, the fight between him and Timur Valiev can finally take place. But, as both fighters have rehydrated and actually ate solid food since their original weight cuts, it's up to the coaching staff to decide what the new weight limit for the fight will be.
The more you can make him suffer, the better. Make it hard as possible for the other guy, right? And take every bit of advantage.
This poor attempt at gamesmanship would be annoying if it weren't for the fact that with 3 losses on their record, Team McGregor is really grasping at straws for a win at this point. A meeting of the minds is scheduled between Chandler and McGregor to discuss the new weight limit, which, like everything else on this show, Connor promptly does not attend.
Just show up for the freaking talk, dude. You didn't show up for the talk, so therefore, once again, you can't get what you want if you ain't gonna show up and talk.
If 80% of success in life is just showing up, Conor McGregor's success rate is sitting at a cool negative 400%. A catch weight of 142 is decided, and we go on to learn a little about Timur Valiev. And by little, I mean very little, because there isn't that much to learn. He's from Dagestan, he lives and trains in Thailand, and he enjoys petting baby tigers with his wife and kids for recreation. The real question I have is why Timur was let go from the UFC in the first place. In his time with the organization, he lost to Trevin Jones, but that was overturned to a no contest. He won his next 2 fights, and his only other loss was to Jack Shore, who was on a 16-fight win streak. He must have dissed the Nelk boys to Dana's face or something.
You gonna help me coach today?
Yeah, we'll do a joint.
Let's go.
Sensing that having an actual coach do some coaching might help them win a fight for once, Team McGregor brings in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to show the prospects how it's done. He goes over distance management and gives some good advice, in stark contrast to Connor's directions, which are go out there and have fun, and quietly wonder why you weren't picked for Michael Chandler's team.
I'm like this.
I'm like this. We then go on to learn a little bit about Trevor, and again there isn't that much to learn. He's 27, lives at home with his parents, and likes to play around in their backyard. Which, as an adult with actual bills and shit, kinda sounds like a pretty sweet deal if you think about it.
Yeah, I made that bench.
6 out of 10.
Porcelain bird feeder made that.
4 out of 10.
Tree planted that.
2 out of 10. Get a new hobby.
I think you better stick with your MMA fighting.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know how that one's gonna work out, Ma. Once again, it's weigh-in time, and in an effort to get Connor to attend, they move the scale to one of the 3 locations that we've actually seen him present in the show. Yet, like an Irish Harry Houdini, he somehow escapes standing still for 5 minutes to support his fighter. With this level of evasion ability, it's amazing that Khabib was ever able to pull off that neck crank. The fight commences with Herb Dean wondering why he was dragged out of bed for this shit, and Dana not knowing either fighter's name.
The body triangle's worse on the kid in the red than the kid on the blue.
Timur fought with a frenetic, somewhat wild style, but was mostly in control on the ground, which ultimately got him the decision victory. The first round was close, the second round was not. 4 wins for Team Chandler, and a continued goose egg for Team McGregor. Color me utterly fucking shocked. So that's it for episode 4. I can't believe there are 6 more episodes of this season, much less the fact that I have tasked myself with reviewing all of them, which has turned out to be a worse decision than giving my life savings to Sam Bankman-Fried. If you like these highlight videos, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one because I hate myself. Whoa, Black Betty!
Bam to boom.
It's episode 5 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler, and finally, a few relatively interesting things happen. Only to be followed by a fight so boring, I may have been able to fall asleep even if I was one of the 2 people actually in the fight itself. Outside of the show, Connor Watch 2023 has been equally uneventful, with Michael Chandler essentially using The Secret to will their fight into existence. Stop trying to make Red Panty Night happen, Michael. It's not going to happen. With nothing else on the agenda, let's jump right into the dollar store meat and potatoes of this thing. It's The Ultimate Fighter Season 31, Episode 5. The episode begins with Connor rounding up the prospects for a little friendly competition within a competition.
We're going to compete and race against each other on the rowing machine.
But because it was Team McGregor, no one would actually go on to win the race. Just kidding, the race was won by Aaron McKenzie. If you don't remember Aaron McKenzie, perhaps his pride flag eye patch will jog your memory.
Winning feels great no matter what you're doing.
I'd suspect that winning a fight on the show where winning fights is your primary objective may rank slightly higher than crushing it on the rowing machine. Anyway, after that friendly little jaunt, Connor disappears and we're introduced to UFC veteran and winner of Season 27 of The Ultimate Fighter, Brad Katona. Brad trains at SBG Ireland and is a longtime teammate of Connor's. But, as Brad is on Michael Chandler's team, questions arise as to where his loyalties actually lie. However, aside from some minor diva moments during coaching sessions, Brad doesn't really cause any kind of drama whatsoever, leading this contrived plot point down a bridge to nowhere. Don't worry though, that won't stop the producers from trying to turn chicken shit into an engaging episode of television. As Brad chats with the coaches from the other team, aka his coaches from back home, his team in the van get annoyed with his tardiness.
Come the fuck on, Brad. How long does it take?
I want to hide his fucking glasses.
I want to give him a swirly and stuff him in his locker, then I want to go over to Kevin Johnson's house and play Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and I won't even be thinking about doing homework. We then move on and meet Katona's opponent for this episode, Carlos Vera, a proud Ecuadorian fighter. Ah, Ecuador, birther of such greats as Chito Vera, Michael Morales, and Rudyard Moncayo. Wait, who the fuck is that? Rudyard Moncayo fought for one fight in the UFC at UFC 6, losing in 68 seconds by rear naked choke to Patrick Smith. Viva Ecuador?
Since I was a kid, I've had dreams of being able to hold my flag up high and represent my country of Ecuador in high levels of competition.
Well, sadly, that's one dream you can put to bed whether you win or lose.
A little bit of drama there with Brad Katona ending up on the other team. Feels like it's a bad movie.
No, coach, it's a bad television show. I have 4 other highlight videos on this channel that'll confirm that. In addition to his other fight training, Carlos is actually a practitioner of capoeira, which is rare in mixed martial arts. It's actually rare, period, as the only other practitioner of capoeira that I can think of is this guy. Brad had the unfortunate luck of running into Merab Dvalishvili in the octagon as he ascended his ranks through the bantamweight division, a fight that Brad says he'd really like to run back.
I don't think there's many guys wanting to fight him, but I'd love to.
You seem like a nice guy, Brad, but have you ever seen one of those plastic whistle tubes that make noise when you swing them around your head? Yeah, that's what Merab would do to you. Again. Once again, we do the weigh-ins. Once again, Connor doesn't show up. Yada, yada, yada. This is my shocked face.
Take his cap off one of those kicks.
You ever wonder what the Joker would look like if he didn't put on the makeup and decided to be a hype man instead? This is the point in the video where I usually go over the fight itself and play some of the replay footage, but this fight can really be summed up in a series of images. Here's round 1. And here's round 2. Good lord, I thought that last week's fight was mid. This fight makes that fight look like Diego Sanchez versus Clay Guida. Conor stomps around the cage all flustered, complaining about wanting 3 rounds, but thank God we weren't subjected to that, as Brad is crowned the ultimate wet blanket for the week, and Team Chandler closes in on the shutout. And thus ends episode 5 of TUF 31. Finally, an at least passably interesting episode, even if that level of interestingness is on par with the mating habits of banana slugs. If you like these highlight videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video after these two are done fucking.
If those men go out and give their absolute all and fight with their heart and their soul, I can promise them they're going again.
Yep.
Yeah. This company rewards that.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? It ain't like they're painting the little niggles.
What? We finally made it to the midway point of season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter, and things are really starting to heat up. I'm serious, we're reaching day-old bread levels of heat here, people. The results of this episode were leaked online last week, but in a roundabout way, it actually made the viewing experience more interesting. So thank you, MMA Twitter. For once in your miserable, roach-infested existence, you've actually provided some value to my MMA fandom. Regardless, this episode has it all. We've got horses, we've got twist endings, and finally, after weeks of waiting, we've got Conor reaching his boiling point and putting hands on Michael Chandler. Will this much publicized moment live up to all of the hype? Of course not! Nevertheless, we've got a lot to unpack in this one, so let's take a bite right out of the nothing burger. It's episode 6 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. This episode says fuck the fluffy shit and jumps right into the backstory of Kurt Hollabaugh, a veteran who's been around since the very last card of Strikeforce. The days when the sport was just gaining momentum, the fights were wild and brutal, and you could somehow still get signed to the UFC even after coming off the tail end of a decision loss.
And they called me and they said, we have a offer for you to fight on the final Strikeforce. End up losing a decision. Sean Shelby came to the back after that, asked me how would I like to come fight in the UFC. So I'm like, I would love that.
Kurt has had a long time on-again, off-again relationship with the UFC, as this will be his 3rd stint with the promotion if he can secure a new contract. To put it into perspective, if this man is successful, his UFC career will have spanned 10 years, 3 contracts, and 2 noses.
Conor has shown me so much. He's shown me that it's possible to do what you put your mind to, you know? When you really believe in yourself that anything is possible.
Kurt's opponent in this episode is Lee Hammond, a kid who looks to be about 14 years old and has been training at SPG Ireland with Conor McGregor for 5 years. There's a Rosenama Yunus Pat Barry joke in there somewhere, but I ain't touching it. Unlike Pat Barry. In my episode 1 review, I touched on how Conor may have forced a few of his teammates onto the show. At the time, I thought that was bullshit. However, after how things have been going for Team McGregor this season, it's actually somewhat welcomed. There's only so much that a person can be trained in the time span of this television show, but Lee has been training with Conor and John Kavanagh since he started MMA. Let's see how much a person with that much McGregor fast in his system can bring to the octagon. Switching gears back to Kurt Hollabaugh, we learn that Kurt is a family man. Which is good, because he has 5 fucking kids! Along with donkeys, chickens, and other assorted livestock that he keeps on his property down in crawfish country, Louisiana. 3 of Kurt's children have names that rhyme, and he admits that this can be sometimes confusing. Future parents, do not do this, or the thing where every kid's name starts with the same letter. It's annoying, confusing, and cringy. It's essentially the Jordan Levitt of baby naming. Do you really want that for your kids?
Oh look, Mac's smiling.
Little Nog tried to put gas in it. He thought it was a bus.
I'm invested into everybody here. He's gonna try to hold on, he's gonna try to squeeze. He don't wanna be standing in front of you and beat him up.
There's a lot of positions I'd like to be in my life. The position to own a house, for example, or being smothered to death under the weight of Mackenzie Dern. Sitting under Michael Chandler in this position, not on the list. Back over to Lee, we learn that he is from Dublin, Ireland, a place whose drab grayness puts Mando's home in Michigan to shame. Dear God, this is what the American Irish romanticize? No wonder the only good thing to come out of Boston is the Dropkick Murphys. The only interesting thing about Lee is that he trains with Conor McGregor. And did I say that they were training together for 5 years? I meant 10 years, making me extra glad that there's not a single Pat Barry joke in this entire episode.
Another Conor no-show at weigh-ins. For me, it's always going to be important because I want my guys to see me there.
Now, if you've been watching these highlight videos, you know that I've been harping on the fact that Conor hasn't shown up to a single weigh-in for any of his team members. That, of course, is the case in this episode as well, but thankfully this story thread will come to a head in the eventual dust-up between the coaches after the fight concludes. More on that in a bit. Now it's fight time, and as I mentioned at the start of this video, knowing the bout's conclusion actually added to my enjoyment of watching the fight, as Lee was kicking some serious ass. He was so dominant in the first and most of the second rounds that I was wondering what the hell could possibly go wrong. Well, what went wrong was that Kurt Hollabaugh summoned some ancient demon within him, securing a guillotine and somehow getting a come-from-behind victory with around 90 seconds left on the clock. Really entertaining plot twist even with the spoilers, another win for Team Chandler, and a loss that would push Conor over the edge.
That one definitely stung for Team McGregor.
Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite moment of Season 31 thus far. Conor storms the cage, starts stomping around, gets up in Michael Chandler's grill, and Houston, we have face mush!
Oh, take your little, take your mother, wait.
Epic. But nowhere near as epic as Dana rushing to the cage, proving that Prancer size really works.
Out of my way.
Dana.
Virtually identical. After a moment about as explosive as a 4th of July sparkler, Chandler goes over to McGregor's team and says the truest shit of all time.
I'm sorry you guys are on that fucking team. I would have been there for you.
And Conor says whatever the fuck this is.
They were trying to filter this thing about the weigh-ins, right? Chandler's trying to pick at that like I wasn't being involved. I'm setting it up. It's me who set it up, first of all. It's not like I just left them to their own devices.
What?
This is doing nothing but motivating each of us for annihilating each other.
You're right, Mike. Conor got real fired up after that incident. So fired up, he sent a voice memo.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna fight right now. We're gonna fight right now. Oh, we're gonna do this. We're gonna fight right now.
So that's about it. That puts a bow on episode 6. If you like these highlight videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video if the body weight of Mackenzie Dern doesn't smother me to death in the meantime. God, I hope I don't see you in the next video.
I'm calling it the exact placement method. That's what I'm calling it. Because it's more brain work than body work.
By the way, here's another position that I never, ever, ever want to be in. UFC 290 took place last weekend, and by all metrics, it was one of the finest events that the promotion has put on in recent memory. From the sheer dominance of Volkanovski, to the perpetual embarrassment that is Israel Adesanya, to the all-out war between Moreno and Pantoja, and the absolutely perfect send-off of Robbie Lawler, truly the event was one for the ages, and one that will go down in the history books as an all-time great. But we're not here to talk about UFC 290, we're here to talk about its bland, worthless polar opposite. It's episode 7 of The Ultimate Fighter, season 31. Why the fuck did I commit to this? Just when I thought that this show was getting interesting, we get another milquetoast episode with another blink and you missed it fight. There's not a ton to talk about in this one, minus a few intriguing points, so if this video is a waste of my time, your time, and my baller-ass new lighting, now you know why. The episode begins with a couple of the prospects hanging out in the hot tub, recounting last week's shoving incident between the coaches. If South Park has taught us anything, absolutely nothing weird or unusual is going on here.
You know Conor got these big ass hands. Yeah. Big ass bricklayer hands.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Roosevelt, because Michael Chandler would beg to differ.
I just feel like sometimes Conor McGregor could be a fucking great man, and sometimes you just want to slap the shit out of him, you know?
No! Conor was once a great fighter and once a great trash talker, but aside from some rare moments of humility, he has always been an asshole. Now he's a rich, enabled megalomaniac spiraling into psychosis before our very eyes. It's truly Kanye McGregor minus the Hitler stuff. For now, at least. Case in point, Conor rolls up to training in his Lamborghini and, with his adrenaline still surging from last week, proceeds to drop this week's prospect fighter Landon Quinones with a lead left body kick. Here's what Landon had to say about this happening.
When that happened, I feel like I learned more in that round than a lot of rounds in my career, and I feel like I'm going to take that with me, and it's going to make me so much better. The way I'm going to train is going to be completely different.
Literal thank you sir, may I have another, and meaning it. We then go on to learn a little bit about this week's veteran fighter, Jason Knight, who, much like Perry Farrell, got caught stealing.
I was like 17 years old. I caught a charge for stealing.
Jason is a country boy through and through. For example, here's him with a very large fish. Here's him with an alligator. And here's one of his children four-wheeling in a mud hole. His license plate may say Mississippi, but his lifestyle screams Florida from the top of its lungs. Last week I talked about how I thought Kurt Hollabaugh giving his children rhyming names was confusing and annoying. Well, Jason went the other confusing and annoying baby naming route, giving all of his kids names that start with the same letter. Major parenting facepalm. In his time with the UFC, Jason went on a 4-fight win streak with 3 performance bonuses, so definitely no slouch. However, some fast living outside of the cage would see that 4-fight win streak turn into a 4-fight losing streak, which would eventually get him cut from the promotion. Unlike the forehead of Timur Valiev, which would cut him in training camp. He goes to the doctor, gets the cut glued, everything can proceed as planned. However, we also learned that Cody Gibson received a much more serious injury in an MCL tear that he got during his fight with Mando a few weeks back. Cody also goes to the doctor, who cautions him on the dangers involved in competing with such a serious injury, but he vows to fight on, exhibiting the true grit needed of an elite-level mixed martial artist. What a shame it is he has to showcase it on this terrible fucking television show. Dana is unironically wearing a Hezbollah shirt.
What makes me dangerous is my mental, my composure under the chaos.
Now it's time for our primer on Landon Quinones. And while Jason Knight's lifestyle might scream Florida, Landon is the one who actually lives here. Except he lives in Boca like a retired dentist from Connecticut. Landon has actually trained with Michael Chandler before, but Chandler is not interested in sparring with him in the lead up to his fights. Perhaps it's because Michael Chandler is very selective about his sparring partners, but we all know the real reason is that Chandler is ducking Landon because of his superior skill and power. Also, have you heard about Logan Paul's crypto zoo? I think it's really going to be the next big thing. The biggest takeaway from Landon's backstory is that it's a rather unpleasant one, involving a lot of mental health issues between himself and his mother. I say that just to say that I'm not making fun of that when I comment that he looked like an absolute madman during the stare-downs at weigh-ins. Either that or the golden retriever from the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but he definitely looked like one of the two. Also, even after the shoving incident from last week, Conor doesn't show up to weigh-ins again.
Jason will submit Landon in the first round.
Jesus Christ, spoilers, Cody. I haven't seen this episode yet. Once again, it's fight time, and once again, there's not a lot to say. Jason lands a couple of early shots, which put Landon on notice. Landon lands a takedown of his own, which was actually pretty decent, but Jason is very comfortable off of his back, sinks in the triangle. Good night, nurse. After this very brief and decidedly one-sided affair concludes, Conor goes over to Dana to inquire what happens if his entire team loses this season, a possibility that is becoming more real by the second.
What's ever happened? We see if anybody wants to go over to the other team.
Oh, buddy. Gary DeFranco, which one of us is the comedian here? So that just about wraps up episode 7 and puts a little bit of bait on the hook for episode 8. Will Team Chandler get the clean sweep? God, I hope so, but really, who gives a shit? If you like these highlight videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one, where I'd still rather be talking about UFC 290, but won't be because my life is a series of bad decisions.
Christmas came early because I'm gonna light that boy up like the tree, dog.
I hope you were planning on joining the brass band then, Landon, because this year for Christmas, all you're getting is a triangle. Episode 8 of The Ultimate Fighter is here, and I just cannot contain myself. For the first time all season, Team McGregor has won a fight. This is, of course, the first win of Season 31 for Team McGregor, and the first time that Conor has had a win on The Ultimate Fighter since the GOAT Artem Lobov was on his team. Off-air, Conor celebrated the win at one of his favorite hangouts, the ladies' bathroom. This time it was at an Irish funeral.
I spoke to a lad who was in there in the toilets for like 35 minutes in the women's one. So I reckon he's been smashing someone in the women's.
Speaking of the win, McGregor stans took to Twitter to say that you love to see it, and for them, I'm sure that they're correct, considering that not a single one of them is a non-consenting female just looking to take a piss. Since the episode aired, I have not been able to get it to stream correctly one single time on ESPN Plus, because ESPN Plus is the worst streaming service I have ever encountered in my entire fucking life. This buggy, clunky, barely serviceable excuse for a streaming service is one that I loathe completely and hope that the UFC gets away from very quickly once their contract expires. So, if the footage in this episode looks a little bit weird, that's why. Fuck ESPN Plus. Here's episode 8 of The Ultimate Fighter Season 31. We begin the episode in the TUF house where Landon Quinones is licking his wounds after his loss to Jason Knight last week. It's actually Jason who gives him some sage advice at this point.
Listen to me. Here's what I told all my dudes coming up. You can either paint yourself a fucking masterpiece. Yeah. Or you can paint a fucking shitty ass picture.
If fighting prowess was measured in terms of art, I would say the contestants on this show are somewhere between county fair nominees and women who go to those boozy art classes so they can get wine drunk with the gals on a Tuesday night. This segment is really just a little bit of fluff as the episode speeds along and we learn about this week's prospect fighter, Rico DeJulo. He's young, he's hungry, and he's
your cousin from Boston.
A few weeks back, I said that the only good thing to come out of Boston was the Dropkick Murphys, but Rico actually seems like a pretty decent guy himself. So, I'll amend that to say that the only good things to come out of the worst metropolitan city in America are the Dropkick Murphys, Rico, and that tea party where we told England to eat a bag of dicks. We then turn and burn, quickly moving along to learn about our veteran fighter for the week, Hunter Azure, another mild-mannered guy on this show full of mild-mannered guys. Hunter is Native American, having grown up on an Indian reservation in Montana. You know who was also Native American? Ultimate Fighter winner and former women's bantamweight champion Nico Montano. With company like that, what could possibly go wrong?
Come to Boston in the winter, people are fighting over parking spots. No bullshit. I've seen more fights over parking spots on my street, bro.
If I were in Boston, the only thing I'd be fighting for is the opportunity to leave Boston. Hate, the black metal band, may have started in Poland in the 90s, but hate as a concept started right at home in Boston, in the heart of every racist masshole who's ever attended a Bruins game. After a quick weigh-in and stare down, it's fight time, and dare I say, this may have been the best fight of the season thus far. This bloody brawl saw a competitive but ultimately decisive 10-9 for Hunter in the first round, only for Rico to rally amazingly in the second, achieving a knockout victory and staving off Team Chandler's clean sweep. This fight was a great reminder that, for as pointless and lame as The Ultimate Fighter has become, great fights are still possible here, so hats off to both of these gentlemen for their performances in the octagon. A performance that deserves no praise is Conor's celebration of this victory. He essentially acted out this meme in real life, bouncing around outside of the cage like a gremlin before needlessly hurling insults at the veterans.
Fuck
fucking holding on to each other, yous are in here for 2 fucking rounds. You think close guard top after 2 rounds is a fight over? There's a lot of unfinished fights here. I call yous here today, gone tomorrow.
Truly, this man has the poise and grace of a newborn giraffe. Now that the quarterfinals have concluded, it's time for the coaches and Dana to figure out the matchups for the semis. However, there's a slight monkey wrench in the operation, considering that even though Team Chandler didn't get the clean sweep, absolutely no one wants to trade ships and go over to Team McGregor. Dana gets input from McGregor, Chandler, and the semi-final fighters, and will reveal his matchmaking decisions next episode. But for now, we conclude episode 8 with Daddy Connor graciously letting Rico take his Lamborghini for a spin around the block.
You go, my man.
Get out of here.
Come on, man. You go, bud.
Get out of here.
Of course.
Yippee! So that's it for the 8th installment of Season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter. If you like these highlight videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video if ESPN Plus actually lets me watch the next episode. Fucking garbage-ass service, suck my balls!
Jay, find out the distance in kilometers from here to my house, please, will you? Because I may start cycling it, or even running it sometimes as well.
Far. The semifinals are upon us in this 9th episode of The Ultimate Fighter, and like Charlie Brown to the football, I thought maybe in this episode, the competition would improve. Maybe, with the semifinals here, it would ignite a flame within these fighters to show their warrior spirit and prove that they truly belong on the UFC roster. Maybe, just maybe, the show would start achieving the greatness that it once had and stop wasting my goddamn time. Did I get any of that? Take a wild fucking guess. Truly, this show is damning my channel to obscurity, as these videos continue to prevent me from devoting time to other projects, and my viewership steadily declines. But, like the world's greatest Beanie Baby collector, my commitment to pointlessness remains unfazed, so let's jump right into the sinkhole. It's episode 9 of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. Or Team Chandler versus Team Chandler Light, to be more accurate now. The episode begins with the fight pairings being revealed and the teams being reshuffled to evenly distribute fighters between Team McGregor and Team Chandler. But the fighters on the red team have the option to stay with Team Chandler if they so choose. Which they did. Overwhelmingly.
I'm definitely not switching teams. I love our coaches. I love the way we train. I'm not a fan of Conor McGregor, and I'm not a fan of the way they've been training.
That makes 2 of us, Kurt. That makes 2 of us. All in all, the only person to defect from Team Chandler was Brad Katona, which makes sense because he already trains with Conor and John Kavanagh in the first place. Every other fighter is riding the red wave like they're rolling tide, baby. Woo! I know literally nothing about college football. I just thought I'd throw that in there to piss someone off.
I guess Conor's outburst at the Apex after the last quarterfinal fight didn't sit too well with all the veterans on Team Chandler.
It might be that they don't want mediocre coaching from a person that bounces around the gym like Roger Rabbit on 1,000 milligrams of Adderall, but I'm sure that the outburst at the Apex played some part in their decision-making too. This episode's fight and the first fight of the semifinals is Austin Hubbard versus Roosevelt Roberts, 2 fighters who have become very friendly over the course of their training within this show. With both fighters being on his team, Michael Chandler opts to do no cornering for this fight whatsoever. This is actually an interesting concept, as it now forces both veteran fighters to rely solely on what they've already been taught, their previous fight experience, and their ability to think on their feet and lock into the moment. It'll also make the Apex more muted than Dominic Cruz's television when DC is on commentary. Before we get to the fight, however, it's time for Conor to insert himself into the mix, showing up to the TUF house wearing the wallpaper from that one scene in Scarface as a button-up, and serving the fighters Irish stew so he can get some product placement in for his shitty beer.
It wasn't really my cup of tea, because, you know, whenever you initially bite into it, you can taste the beer.
This stew could have live scorpions in it, and the beer would still be the worst part.
I wasn't really excited that Conor and his team were coming over.
Lol. After a few generically touching calls home to their families, it's time for weigh-ins for Kurt and Roosevelt, and bout money is over by $1/4 pound. Instead of going back into the sauna, he chooses to cut his hair, sending Mando leaping into barber mode. However, the loss of his dreadlocks is significant to Roosevelt as he is a Rastafarian, so surely the sacrifice will be made worthwhile inside of the cage. I've never been more sure of anything in my entire life. Roosevelt makes weight and the cornerless fight can begin. As this is the semi-finals, the fights have been bumped up to the standard 3 5-minute rounds, and holy shit do I wish that they hadn't been. At one point, Conor calls this contest a glorified sparring session, and for once in his time on this show, he's actually correct. This absolute snoozer of a fight saw one takedown from Austin and a whole lot of nothing. I don't know if it's just because they liked each other or couldn't get their feet on the gas, but who really fucking cares? Roosevelt may have lost this fight via split decision, but really everyone lost, most especially the viewers. And having to sit through this back to back with the London card from last weekend, all I can say is UFC... How dare you! And that's pretty much it. That's how the episode ends. Austin moves on to the lightweight finals, Dana's not happy about the performances, and I want to run face first into a moving train. If this is the level of athletic excellence / reality entertainment that this show is going to keep as we enter the last 3 episodes, this is the level of effort I'm going to be putting into these highlight videos. I'd ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, but at this point, I'm thinking about unsubscribing myself. I'll see you in the next episode unless I decide to act on that decision.
Hey, I got something I want you to see. You gotta sign it. Yeah, you got the...
Looks like Mando takes his commitment to pointlessness pretty seriously himself. As the roller coaster of quality that is this season of The Ultimate Fighter continues to chug along, this episode provided something novel. A good fight with a controversial decision. No way. Yes way! On your average fight night card, this bout between Brad Katona and Timur Valiev would have been standardly impressive. Thus, in the context of this season of The Ultimate Fighter, it's elevated to god tier levels so extreme that your head might explode like that dude in Scanners. And considering that the only remotely entertaining thing that the producers deemed funny enough to tease in the upcoming episode is Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor hanging out in ice baths answering trivia questions, I think it's safe to say that any hope that I had for comedy going into these last couple of episodes is out of the fucking window. Nevertheless, I grasped at the straws and cobbled some shit together for you this week, so here's episode 10 of The Ultimate Fighter, season 31, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. The episode begins with Brad rolling up to the apex looking like the IT guy at your girlfriend's office that she tells you not to worry about, giving his walking papers to Team Chandler as he defects to Team McGregor for good.
I truly think each individual deserves to be put in the best scenario for themselves.
I know that I've said it a number of times in these highlight videos, but it really can't be overstated just how nice of a guy Michael Chandler is. The guy is on par with Wonder Boy. I wonder if he gets his show pay. Fresh off of his defection from Team Chandler, it's right into training camp for Brad, where Conor McGregor shows off his high-quality, ace-level coaching skills.
I'm gonna go on that hook kick. 1, 2.
Stop.
Again, look at me.
I am, but I don't want to be.
You want to be able to go.
I want to be able to go to bed tonight without the thought of this training session haunting me in my sleep. We then switch gears over to Timur's fight camp, where Islam Makhachev stops by. He doesn't really do anything, so Timur's just happy that he gets to speak a little Russian.
I see my friends was good because I don't speak Russian for 5-6 weeks.
After a little bit more training and some fight footage watched on both sides, it's time for the calls home, and credit where credit is due, Brad is a smooth motherfucker. He reads some journal entries to his girlfriend, and she is feeling it.
Katie, how I love writing you every evening. How great it will be to see you again. The thought of you every night allows me to go to bed in peace. I cannot overstate how much I love you, and that I am here for us.
I really hope that this is the last call home that they get for this season, because if not, Brad is whipping out the guitar next time, no questions asked. Much less pimp, but much more sweet, Timur opts to call home to his mama. And that's a very nice thing for a very nice guy on a very bad show. The weigh-ins commence, both fighters make weight, then during the stare down, because Brad Katona's nickname is Superman, someone says this.
Look at that S on his chest. Stands for hope.
What? As I mentioned in the intro, this fight was pretty goddamn good, washing the taste of last week's fight right into the sewer where it belongs. In round 1, Brad got cut, and oh boy did that thing leak. And leak, and leak, and fucking leak. All 3 rounds were bloody messes because of this one cut. Regardless, Brad was able to hold his own, got some good shots in, but overall from a full fight perspective, Timur was really dominating in my opinion. I watched with my buddy Ray, the Vitz King, he said the same thing. You watch After TUF with Dean Thomas, they said the same thing on that show. That made the split decision victory for Brad Katona all the more baffling because from an optic perspective he was at a disadvantage because of the cut, and from an output perspective he was at a disadvantage because Timur was laying down the fucking law. I do not agree with the decision. Brad does not deserve to go on to the finals, but here we are, yet again. Them's the breaks in the fight game. Sorry, Timur, you deserve to win. I suspect that this is one of those situations where Timur will end up getting a contract anyway after the show concludes. However, within the confines of the competition, it really does just suck. Regardless, that's how episode 10 ends, and that's how I'm ending this highlight video. If you find this shit even remotely entertaining, I commend you. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the penultimate episode of season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter, if there's even a shred of sanity left in this fucking noggin of mine.
Just a cue, you know,
Yeah.
just when. I got the other ones, Frankie, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike. Frankie, boom, boom, boom. Fedor, boom.
Give me that Tyson! Well, holy shit! Just when I thought that all hope was lost, just when I thought that neither the science of man nor the power of God himself could produce something worth watching on this season of The Ultimate Fighter, it turns out that Santa Claus is real and your parents didn't resent you as a child because at long last, we got a legitimately good episode of TUF 31! Did it take us 11 episodes to get here? Yes. Was the reality TV portion of the program entertaining? No, but also yes. I'll explain in a minute. Was the fight good? Fucking yes. I'm more fired up than a Trevor Wells cold sore right now, so let's jump right into it. It's episode 11 of The Ultimate Fighter, season 31, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. In what they dubbed the Battle of the Bayou, this episode's fight was between Jason Knight and Kurt Hollabaugh, two very skilled, very dangerous veteran fighters. The episode begins with the two of them in the kitchen discussing the output that they should be expecting from each other.
If we don't each break 500 punches each, we didn't do our job.
Well, Kurt, if that's your criteria for what you consider a good day at the office, you were really gunning for Employee of the Month with this fight. Somebody put this man's name on a parking spot!
I visualize Kurt constantly coming forward. And I am the matador, I guess you could say.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but let's be real. This guy is the matador. And God forbid any of you fuckers ever run into him.
That was my bull impression.
4 out of 10. Do better bull impressions. Ever creative with his coaching techniques, Michael Chandler puts a classic children's song to good use.
Hands connected to the shoulders, shoulders connected to the core, core connected to the hips.
The ankle bone's connected to the leg bone. Now shake them skeleton bones.
Now it's time for the coaches challenge, and being that it's at night and indoors, the fighters are speculating as to what the challenge itself will be.
One-legged race for Lee.
Put a loaded syringe in a lady's bathroom at the finish line, and that's one challenge that Connor will definitely win. Well, who'da thunk it, the coach's challenge turns out to be the ice bath plunge that was teased last week. Except there's a twist. In addition to the ice baths, Bruce Buffer will be asking UFC trivia questions for the coaches to answer, and he gives this little competition a way better intro than it deserves.
It's bath time!
From here on out, this soundbite will be played every time that I bathe myself. So at the very least once a week. So as I mentioned in the intro, this wasn't exactly high entertainment, but the trivia itself was pretty good, making the MMA nerd in me very proud that I only missed 2 questions, and the guy who actually wants to get laid again in his lifetime very, very sad. Also, apparently the coaches were in there for like 30 minutes, when 15 is the maximum you should be in an ice bath, so that's kind of fucked up, but of course Dana is no stranger to doing stupid shit and then saying, oh, well that'll never happen again. So even though he couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag, Conor somehow ekes out the victory in this competition, gaining $10,000 that'll spend on breakfast tomorrow and $1,500 for each of the prospects, which is a pretty decent consolation prize for having to be on his team in the first place. It's kind of like when they used to send you home with a lifetime supply of beans on the match game in the 70s.
I got 10 in this pocket that I'm at the winner. I got 10 in this pocket that I'm at the bringing. And that's it, the roulette on the wrist. The house is always fucking winning, baby. Yeah, and I'm the house.
R.I.P. Lil Tay. At least when she did this shtick, it was funny because it was coming out of an actual 9-year-old instead of a grown man who acts like one. Now it's time for the weigh-ins. Both fighters make weight, and then Jason Knight turns the stare down into a prayer down.
Dear Lord, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for this opponent. I ask that you let us both go in here and fight at the best of our abilities.
I think that's the first one of those that I've ever seen.
You keep talking to her. What are you saying to her?
I'm just saying the Lord's Prayer.
Alright, the second one. As it turns out, Kurt and Jason only live about an hour and a half away from each other, and were actually scheduled to fight earlier on in their careers. That fight didn't end up materializing, but it did lead to some funny interactions on their calls home to their families, including Jason's brother predicting that the two would be fighting now, and Kurt's wife getting this sick little dig in before the end of their very emotional conversation.
You got this, okay? You know it.
Love y'all.
Jason Knight. Come on, you better.
Well.
You got this.
God damn it, man. Kurt goes for Employee of the Month and now his wife is trying to take my job? What the fuck is going on here? Not to be outdone, though, Jason gets the best line of the calls home when he says this to his lady at the end of their conversation.
Baby, I love you. I love you more than most of them other people.
With all the fluff out of the way, it's fight time, and what a fight it was. The first minute of this fight was better than most fights the entire season, with Kurt starting strong and staying strong. In addition to his power and distance management, I think the most impressive thing to me about the striking clinic that Kurt put on was his rhythm and his timing. He found his tempo early, locked into the flow state, and kept that for as long as the fight lasted. I think it was this early accuracy that caught Jason off guard, not allowing him to find his own rhythm. He started to put things together late in the first with a couple of really impressive kicks, but by then Pandora's box was well open. Starting the second round, Kurt continued his meticulous performance until a very game Jason Knight just couldn't stand it anymore, and Kurt earned the TKO victory. A fucking brilliant, high-level, UFC-caliber fight for this UFC television show. Amazing. Dana called it the fight of the season, and unless Cody and Rico can tear the rafters off the Apex and beat each other with those, I'm thinking that I agree. Also, side note, hey you two, this is how you fight someone that you consider a friend. After the fight concludes, it's all love between the two competitors, and that's how the episode ends, with Kurt going to the finals on the back of a fight so good it actually made watching this entire season worthwhile. Now who am I kidding? Rory Mack versus Robbie Lawler 2 couldn't have made watching this entire season worthwhile, but it was still a pretty good episode overall. If you like these highlight videos, subscribe to the channel, and I'll definitely see you in the next one for the finale of The Ultimate Fighter, where I'll be screaming the words "free at last" so loudly, I'll be accused of racial insensitivity and most assuredly get canceled.
Core connected to the hips, exploding through the ground, yes. There we go.
I know I played this clip earlier in the episode, but I wanted to point out one thing. Michael Chandler is such an effective coach that not only is he training strength and conditioning with these medicine balls, if this picture is any indication, he's also training how to effectively take a nut shot. What an absolute legend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's all over! After 12 grueling weeks, the shackles of bondage have been lifted as we reach the finale of The Ultimate Fighter Season 31. Would I be lying in saying that there's some small part of me that's going to miss this show? Yes, absolutely I would be. Watching this horse shit has been the equivalent of sticking bamboo shoots under my fingernails for the last 2.5 months, and I hope to jettison it into the ether and out of my memory forever as soon as the filming of this video concludes. Nevertheless, we've got one more wet fart of an episode to get through, this week featuring the last of the semi-final fights between Cody Gibson and Rico DiGiulio. Full disclosure, Cody Gibson somehow found this channel and is a fan of the content, so shout out to him for that. But I pride myself on being as objective as possible in these videos, so as all these nice guy fighters say, Cody, afterwards we can be friends, but for the next 5 to 8 minutes, go fuck yourself. With all that being said, let's take one more ride on Satan's merry-go-round. For the last time ever, it's episode 12 of The Ultimate Fighter, Season 31, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. The episode begins with Rico's fight prep, where Connor continues to dish out the high-quality precision coaching advice that has catapulted his team to such great heights for this entire season.
Everyone have to shoot and roll or do something. They're here. Where are we going? Where are we going?
God, I cannot wait to go back to only having to hear this maniac babble this way in voice memos on Twitter, because having to hear it in real time when someone is actually depending on him for guidance makes me feel the same way I feel when our current president tries to string a sentence together. Back at the TUF house, Michael Chandler stops by to spend some quality time with all of the contestants from the show before this hellish little experiment concludes.
I heard we have some crawfish.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Get some crawdads yet? See some crawdads.
Again with the goddamn crawfish. This show has had so many crawdads on it that it's single-handedly inflating the Louisiana Crawdack Index. Which is a real thing that they have on television down there, because the American South is a rich tapestry of shit that has to be seen to be believed. Everybody enjoys their mud bugs, has a good time, and then much like myself at parties, Michael Chandler dips before the cleanup begins.
Thanks for the crawfish. Bye. See you, boys. All right.
Galaxy brain. We then cut to the prospects, who are being taken out to a steak dinner, which of course is the very least that they deserve for being subjected to this abomination of a season, where Carlos gives a very lovely and entirely undeserved toast to Connor and the coaches.
You have taught us from day one what a humble person, which we all are, has done in the journey of martial arts.
Humble? Excuse me, did you say humble? Would you take a fucking time machine back to 2013? Humble? Duh!
You've shown us perseverance. You've shown us an iron will. You've shown us a little bit of fuck you.
Judging by the wins and losses on this season, I'd say he's shown you a lot of fuck you. Everybody eats, they all enjoy copious amounts of whiskey, and then Connor gives $1,000 to each of the prospects, which, knowing the UFC, they'll probably all have to spend on airfare just to get home from Las Vegas. We then shift gears over to Cody's fight prep. Not a whole lot to see here, except for this one piece of information that he offered, which indeed I did not know about fighting.
You know, one of the things that people don't understand about fighting is that when they lock the cage door, there's an invisible sign over the door. And the only two people who can see that sign are the two guys who are about to fight. And it's an exit sign. My intention each time I go out there is to make that exit sign glow for my opponent.
Deep, bro. You should, write a book or something, man. I'm serious, dude. You could do it. Back at the TUF house, we get a reminder that this is indeed a reality show where Cody and Brad go back and forth, with Cody telling Brad exactly how he feels about him and his fighting style.
There's a reason there's 16 guys in this house and 15 don't like you.
I think some people like me.
Newsflash.
I'm pretty sure.
Newsflash. Nobody does. I was watching one of your Brave fights and I had to turn it off because I was so bored. You were just hugging the guy against the cage for 15 minutes. Can't wait to smash it, bro.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
It'll be like Christmas.
Be careful, Cody. Things didn't go too well for the last guy who brought up Christmas on the show.
Christmas came early because I'm gonna light that boy up like the tree, dog.
After this little tiff and successful weigh-ins on both sides, we get the calls home, and this is when I really got concerned for Cody, because it's never a good sign when the fighter is crying more than his wife and kids.
You're almost there. Stay strong.
How have you been? How has everything been?
Good. I mean, it's the same, you know? We go crazy some days, and it's easy some days, and work's been fine.
I just love how Cody's getting the quiver lips, and his wife's like, I'm fine, the kids are fine, everything's fine, suck it up and go win your goddamn fights. Hollywood wants to push this girl boss narrative. Here's an actual one.
Hey, you know you tuck your arm under, and if he does this, I mean, you won that round, so do that.
Okay.
Shit, better advice than Connor gave all season. Someone should have got that kid to coach the prospects. Rico has his call home to his girl, his kids, and his mother, and not to give him short shrift, but there's not too much to talk about here, as it was pretty much all business and not overly emotional, which I would have expected to be the case out of more of the fighters on this show. Everyone's crying about being away from their loved ones for a couple of weeks, when I actually have to agree with Connor.
That's a break.
At long last, it's fight time, and once again we get a near complete exhibition of one-way traffic. Any semblance of injury to Cody's MCL was certainly not on display, as he adopted a more boxer-like stance to mitigate inside leg kicks, and really only had to eat a couple of shots before Rico slipped while throwing a lunging jab, allowing Cody to pounce on him like a house cat on an injured bird. Cody's control with the body triangle was ridiculously nice, keeping that thing locked in for a good minute and a half at the first go, and another 30 seconds or so later in the round. All throughout, Cody kept smothering Rico with submission attempts and some good hands before ultimately locking in the head and arm triangle and securing the submission victory. Rico threw a little bit of a temper tantrum at the end of this fight, even though there was one point where he slipped Cody off of his back and could have created distance, but didn't do it. Either way, I don't know if the outcome would have been much different, having seen what we saw earlier on in the fight. Either way, both fighters ship off to Boston, with Rico going home and Cody going to the TD Garden for UFC 292. So what have we learned on this season of The Ultimate Fighter? Well, aside from things that we already knew, like Connor is a lunatic, Michael Chandler is a nice guy, and the show absolutely blows now, I think the biggest thing that we learned is prospects versus veterans is an absolutely terrible format for this type of competition. It really set the prospects up for failure even before the show started, and that really sucks donkey balls. I also learned that there is no way in hell that I will ever be reviewing an entire season of this show ever again. If you like this content, I implore you to subscribe. The YAMMA show will return along with a lot of new content, and hopefully we will never say the words The Ultimate Fighter on this channel ever again. Good fucking riddance!
This has been an incredible 31st season of TUF.
This has been the most miserable experience I have ever subjected myself to in my entire life. And that includes the time that I spent 3 weeks living in a Waffle House in Daytona Beach.
Insane.